I would so heartily agree with everything. And of course, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about we come together as one. We are one, but again, we're not a monolithic people. That we, so I always talk to, so when you talk about some of the up and coming new progressive, especially when it's new progressive in age, and I'd say progressive because you got the liberal side and you got the progressive. A lot of times people think of liberals, the older, crying, doing all of these other things, the progressives kicking down the doors and being young and being more aggressive about what's happening. So as someone who's an Xer like yourself, and we're in the middle, we kind of understand it because the kick down the door is kind of our children. We've learned some kind of savvy in between, but it's really good to see because it does my heart well, because it makes me think we've done a good job with laying the foundation and giving a clear path to what it is that we need to do. So when I look at the future, it's about really that relationship building, because we know from time to time when politicians have looked at our community, it's been single source issues. And we have to, in a relationship setting, start explaining some of these things. Because these, like you said, the town halls and the forums, it's this usual general stuff. And then some people do rally everybody up about the occupant of the White House and say some things, and we're against that. But at the end of the day, you don't really know. And what I'm seeing from these young progressives is they're actually pulling all the layers back. Like, what is this? How much is going to cost? What is this? When that's why when I was running for the Corporation Commission, one of the things that really got me is I realized my audience. I saw a lot of young people saying to me, wow, this has to do with my electricity bill. This is the first time I get it. This has to do with my child having asthma. This has to do with these types of things. So when in a relationship setting, we start explaining how this impacts, then we actually get past just saying senator. That's the thing, because most people understand senator, they think. But these other things like board of supervisors, from Whitney to OD to all. One thing I'm very proud of, what I do a lot of times to just open the door to candidates is I send them a donation. Because I know what it's like to be saying, well, I called this person. They say, good luck. I'm like, I need a little bit more than luck right now. I need some money to be able to do what I need to do. So I think one of the things, even if it's a small level donation, and I'm always honored when I get somebody who says, you know what, I don't have much, but I'm gonna do a $5 reoccurring donation. That $5 turns into $60 over the course of a 1-year campaign. So $10, that's $120. So I tell people, do what you can, because all of it costs money. And as a candidate, I think one of the most heartfelt situations I had, I was in Yuma, Arizona, and when I was running statewide, and somebody said, Kiana, what is happening with you tonight? I'm like, I'm sitting in my car trying to figure out these hotels. My budget's low. This is what's happening. And it's a real thing. She was like, I have a 5-bedroom house. Get your people, come on. And I was like, thank God. Like, she didn't have money, but she actually had a resource. Then she gave us a good night. And, before we got up, I sent my campaign manager to go buy some stuff for breakfast. We had breakfast and it was good. So all of that stuff doesn't just magically appear. Everything you see costs money. And the last thing I would say, it's just inspirational words. When you are doing a campaign, a lot of negativity is said all the time. Whether if you're a Black woman, somebody talking about your hair and why your hair look like that, why it's not straight, why it's not this, you do Afrocentric, why you put the beads in your hand, are you being more militant, or is it Black Lives Matter? All of this stuff based on the way I'm wearing my hair today. I'm like, good. And all of that stuff can take a toll on a person who is human, not just a candidate. So encouraging words and actually having that true support, and really every dollar matters. And so if you're sitting there and you got $5, do what we say in the community, put 5 on it, because candidates look at those things. they're like, "Whoo, we got $5 extra." You think that don't matter, but it do matter when you look at the end of a campaign and you're looking at possibly not only have you given up part of your livelihood and sometimes your job and your earning potential to go out here and make this sacrifice, now you're actually looking at maybe campaign debt or what things you have to sacrifice for the next couple months for the sacrifice you're making to serve.
That sounds really like, I know a lot of times in our community, we say like, listen, I support you, I'm with you, but it's really about this. And it's really about what you pour into somebody. Are you volunteering to try to help them? Maybe you can phone bank for somebody, And these are the things that I don't think are naturally a part of the conversation. It's more or less, I know who that is. I saw that person running. I support them, I support everybody Black that's running. That's good. And you can wear the t-shirt, right? But what about the donation, right? What about volunteering? And I think that's a key point to getting our candidates where they need to be.
And you're absolutely right about that. And it's an easy step, and it's an easy little recipe in order to help get in. And there's no way that folks will be able to get in without having necessary supports. Because no matter how much of a cape you put on, and you might think you're a superhero, but you cannot do the campaign entirely by yourself. And I don't care who it is. So you need volunteers. You need to make sure you have that. You have to make sure you have that funding. You are so right. And just, a little bit can go a long way. And if you're able to give more, do that. And then also just giving of the time. And that is something that I've always thought is really important, because I go back to when I very first ran, and when I was in office, and then even when I got elected in, and the individuals who served as mentors to me. And I'll never forget it. Folks that paved that way. People like Herschella Horton. You may not know who she is, maybe you do, but she's from Tucson, and she was in the House of Representatives. And she literally let me climb under her wing, and I learned a lot from her. Before I got in office, Sandra Kennedy, she was right there. Helping. She'd get out and help walk with me. And she used to be a state senator. So, you look at those, Carolyn Walkers, individuals that have been, influential in my life getting here. So the last thing that I should ever think to not do is to reach back and to be able then to mentor others. So not only do I give of funding, but I also give of my time freely. If someone wants to talk about whatever it might be, they could just be having a day where someone's went to town on them just because of their hair, or God forbid, the Black woman tone that you hear so much about. So somebody, because you got passionate about something. So they are free to give me a phone call. We can talk or whatever it is, and kind of guide them through different, things that they want to chat about, or just in general, how do you go about doing the best with making sure you keep up with all of your paperwork as you're trying to run for offices, so you do not make one of those mistakes that can, shine up on you in a newspaper someplace. So these are the kind of things I'm willing always to give of my time, because why go through all of this for all those years and not be able to share with someone if they're willing to listen and willing to take any of the advice that you have. I'm always willing to help out.
Nice. It's good to hear. So I want to take a different detour from what we've been talking about. And I want to bring up the topic of Ice Cube and his recent platinum plan, right? You hear a lot of people saying, oh, this is a great thing. Someone's finally doing something. We never really had a Black agenda. And you have other people saying that, why he's doing this. He's out of his league. So I want to kind of open the question up for dialogue here. What do you think when you have celebrities such as Ice Cube and, P. Diddy Combs talking about having our own Black party? What do you think about those type of, initiatives from people that, sometimes are, they are celebrities, but are they really activists? And do they really know the process? but you got to give them some type of, 2 points for trying. But how do you guys feel about that when you have celebrities producing these type of agendas, handmade or homemade, as some people will say?
Well, I'll go back to some of the things that have been occurring when we look at the social unrest that's going on now. And when you look at what occurred with the various basketball players, whether it was the NBA, the WNBA, and go on even back further when it just was not the very popular conversation with Kaepernick. So, taking a knee. But you look at what these various players have been doing, and then a lot of folks, would come out and make comments like, well, they should just be dribbling a ball or whatever. And I guess if you look at the same time of various entertainers, should they just be on stage and have nothing to say? You look at the fact, though, that they too live in this country and they have a right to make a statement, to make comments, to make a plan if they want to make a plan, whatever it is, they have that right to do so. It's up to individuals if they want to get behind that plan or not, but certainly to me, they have every right to speak, because on one end, we will say, well, where are all the celebrities? Well, where is this person? Well, where is that person? Notorious for saying that. But then when these people come forward, then it's, what are you doing talking about whatever, So it's a double-edged sword with that. And not to mention the fact that they can have an opportunity to have a platform and they can share it and they can have an audience of individuals to work with it. So maybe perhaps depending on what it is, so with Ice Cube and what he has, if he's opening it up to others to be able to talk about that and add their opinion and their fact and get together on it, it was stated here even in the beginning of the call of this interview this evening, and that was, well, everybody needs to do their part. Everybody needs to do something. What does everybody mean? Is it really everybody? And that's the thing. So I don't think, in my own humble opinion, it's not a proper way to go and put anybody down because they want to engage in the political conversation at all. And I am a political scientist as well. That's what I went to school for. And in studying that, I know that everything really involves eventually around politics and about what needs to be done, policy or otherwise. So I think they have every right to state what their opinions are. And we should not just, go around and just criticizing individuals in that way. And as far as Ice Cube goes, good for him in explaining what his views and what his opinions are. I haven't had a chance to read the plan, would love to do so, because maybe we can get some good stuff out of it, maybe not. But at least he decided to get engaged.
I agree, and I actually think about the historical context and also think about pop culture. So I want to kind of interweave both. One, historical context, I'm going to say someone from the entertainment field that we know who became one of the most popular advocates in our nation when it comes to civil rights, being Harry Belafonte. A lot of people said the same thing about him. Oh, he's an entertainer, he's whatever, what is he doing over there doing that other stuff? That's not what we pay him to do. And we know who the we were, saying that's not what we paid him to do. So when I think about that, that makes me encouraged to say, yes, if you got a platform, do it. But also as we think about the football situation, I then think about a basketball player who I admired and adored back in the day, who started off as a player with LSU named Chris Jackson, who actually changed his name to Mahmoud. And he was the first one to actually raise the fist and not actually stand for the flag. And he was actually banned for the league, and you never heard of him anymore. The next player that you heard who was of his year was Shaquille O'Neal, when actually he was of the same class and actually was a point guard and actually was just amazing what he did. But his career ended. There was no support for what he was doing, and he was done. So hence, when you talk about history repeating itself, now we see this, and now we actually see kind of a different result, but it still took time for the acknowledgement of we should be supporting and understanding of the brutality of Black people here and the murder and brutality of Black people, and actually saying enough is enough and eradicating. And when somebody decides to actually say all lives are not mattering right now, so Black Lives Matter, to actually support the movement. And when I think about Ice Cube, the thing that really was the best thing I saw, it's in people's living room in a different way. Like, and when I say that, you don't just have people who from the rap situation, now you have people who are watching movies because he did his crossover. And now most of all, you have women listening because he's going to the red table to talk to women in the future generations. So I'm like, okay, so now we got Jada Smith and Smiths, and they cross all the boundaries. They've done the thing. There's not a lot of people who don't know Willie from Philly. So, we got all of these things going on. And I said, okay, we get it. Some educational piece will come out of this. And when I said that, what the one part I watched that I was so happy to even see that now people understand you don't have to vote the whole ticket. Like if you're scared of doing wrong or not choosing the right person and learning, there is a resource. If you want to learn about the judges, there is a resource. If you want to learn about, okay, there's 3 to choose from, but maybe I should just choose one. So more and more people are learning those things. Because I've heard people say, I want to vote. Voting stressful because I don't know who I'm voting for. I don't know any of the people on the ballot. I'm just here nervous and I might mess it up. But now he's bringing to us in a relational way that you can learn more about voting. And he's bringing the Van Joneses in with what he's talking about, and people who do have the all the areas where he may be green in, he's bringing those people together because they are realizing, okay, Ice Cube got a whole different audience than who we're talking to in our platform. So I'm seeing that bridge, and it's exciting to me because that lets me know this next generation is actually finding different ways to make this happen. Just like we're sitting here tonight on a podcast that can go anywhere at any time and inform a whole different generation. So again, I'm super excited about it. Okay, it's not your lane. We got to be in those lanes. That's not our lanes. And even if we're, not exactly right in it, that's okay. Take up space because everybody else learn as they go. Why can't we learn as we go, figure it out? I look at our counterparts, when I look at our Brown and Black coalitions and I look at some of the things that's happened in the Brown community, I was like, some of the most powerful institutions, I remember what they looked like when they first got started. And right now we're just here, we're a smaller population, but we gotta start somewhere. So I'm excited about the new starts that I see happening.
Yeah.
Just imagine if Muhammad Ali never would have done some of the things that he did to make the statements, to the point even of at one point having jail time. He did whatever he felt was necessary throughout those times. Imagine if he never would have taken those steps. For those that may have looked and thought about that, imagine if Common never would have made any statements, as an activist. And so it's just, at some point we have to stop and we really need to thank those that are becoming more engaged and not just sitting back in their glory and just doing whatever, being an entertainer. They're humans as well, and they are citizens, and their voices matter too.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the difference is that right now in our current political environment, people are feeling the pain politically, right? This is the first time in a long time that we had a lot of the culture feeling politically distressed, the challenges, and being really like in our face due to COVID-19 and us leaving a lot of distractions, now people are starting to like feel like, wow, this is what's really been going on. I don't like to use the word woke. I like to use the word of awareness, right? And I think, you know, when you have Ice Cube and you have other celebrities that, you know, that are using their platforms to advocate for the culture, and like you said, you had Muhammad Ali and other people comment, you know, I think the effort is there. We have to acknowledge that, right? And I think as effort goes on, we learn from that. And I think also too, as well, Ice Cube and other celebrities can learn, okay, well, you know what, hey, that didn't work. I'm gonna try something else again. Or I'll build a better political team, or I'll be more political aware. Because also too, part of the challenge that Ice Cube had, he had an interview with Roland Martin, and he really wasn't prepared. So that add more fuel to the fire, like, you know, you really don't know what you're talking about. But your lady said something very important. You gotta give him credit for trying. So maybe next time he's more aware, or maybe the next celebrity, since see this as an example, okay, you know what? Maybe I can do better. Henceforth, on the other end of the spectrum, you have LeBron James, which is very politically aware, very politically engaged. I mean, he really advocated for the NBA to turn NBA stadiums into voting centers, polling centers. So you have two different ends of the spectrum where I think one party can learn from the other. And I think you can't really can't say, okay, Ice Cube, you know what, hey, you just need to sit down somewhere. You do have to give him credit for trying. But I think that's where we have to kind of balance our celebrities, who's really engaged, who's really putting the work in, who's really putting the skin into, or as you say, talking the talk and walking the walk. We have other celebrities that still have that same, you know, I'm here, but I'm not here, but I'm gonna try something. So I think that's where we have to clear it up a little bit in our culture, and I think that's where we have to try to really support people doing something. Gentlemen, what do you think on that? On a closing note, what do you think about, you know, Ice Cube and the ladies that stated regarding the issue?
You know, I think to me, Ice Cube, I think the effort is a valid effort. Yet at the same time, I think it's important to have a good group of folks surrounding you. It's good to have people who mentor you. I think that's what I'm especially taking out of our conversation here in terms of your journey, your walk, your growth in politics, and understanding that yes, politics is social, and you can't, you know, separate the two. You know, for social, the social makes political, and the political makes social, and as such, it's one of those things where you have to understand where you might know a little bit more of the social, but need to learn more of the political, right? And to make sure that you surround yourself with people that can facilitate that in order to be able to make the decisions. When you step out on your platform, you're able to make decisions and deploy strategies that are effective to getting things moved in the right direction for our community. If you choose to speak for our community, it probably should take a community of people within your team that really facilitates that.
Corey, what you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this whole process was going on with. I even got my Boys in the Hood T-shirt on today. So when I got off work, I threw my shirt on. But I think one of the things that
Ricky,
I know, Ricky. You know, Ricky. I'll probably get a Ricky right now, huh? No, but I just say one of the things that I really enjoy about watching the process is that if you look at Ice Cube, even we say the name Ice Cube, we don't even call him by his real name. We're saying Ice Cube, a image that a platform that he created in the music industry, and back anybody that listened to that music, NWA, and what was being said, Public Enemy back then, they were challenging issues right now about police brutality back then. They was describing the issues in the community back then and they were speaking out against politics, even back then. So I think to watch the evolution, to watch him do that, to go into his own music as an entrepreneur, to go into movies to where he had a more softer touch for those who had children. I mean, those movies he had about, what was those?
Are you there yet?
Say it again.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? There are a lot of black fathers, black women, black families who watch those movies and were in awe to watch him be changed from the character NWA to where you couldn't let your children listen to that, to where you could let your children watch him on the TV with those Are We There Yet movies, be a father, stepfather, all of that. Then to watch him in the barbershops, he was on Sesame Street. Let me finish it, but he has evolved his position about himself. And I think that's the evolution of the black man, especially the black person coming out of an inner city area. They're saying that they evolved themselves as well. So I think he was speaking to a population, to a generation of people who say, hey, we were there with you, and now we're at this next level. And that the paper that they put together, what I'm very intrigued about the paper is that one of the things that when I first heard about, I was like, man, how much of this is going to get to Congress? How much is going to get to impact? Because he was speaking to a different audience. He wasn't speaking to just the regular, just go out, get out here and vote. That's not what he was doing. This whole contract strategy, looking at the economic development models, the funding models in the state, and how funds should go out there. He was speaking to a totally different group about what are you doing at the legislative level to take care of black folks, or talk about black people's stuff in a different way. Then to watch him with his basketball thing he did, but I mean, who has countered the odds of the NBA, one of the largest businesses that promote black people, that he entered that industry and created something. So when I watch him, I'm more intrigued to say, okay, this is really interesting to watch somebody transform themselves and then to try to speak to multiple audience. I don't think he was talking to like the voter, get out there and vote. He was talking about, hey, whoever's in power, we need to have this dialogue about how we position ourselves with the resources at hand. And that's a conversation for Congress. That's a conversation for your county executive, for your county board, your county supervisor, your academic world, the academy in the academic world. You're speaking to a different group of people, and you're going to also spark that intellectual group who's out there, who's constantly reading, who's constantly criticizing anything that come across the airways. He's speaking to that group too. So I think it was a platform that he did, like he was able to get into there. And then you got the entertainment industry who had to respond to that. Everybody's responding. So more that I look at what he did, like, man, did he do it right? Did he, because that's the thing about black people, I think, especially with politics, there is such a thing as a ring. People want you to kiss it. They want you to actually get their permission to go forth with something in your life. That's even in business. You meet a bunch of black people in business. I've seen in those arenas, they'll sit there and they want you to do things a certain way when you coming through the ranks, when you're around. I think there's this thing about kiss the ring, do what we need you to do first before you start trying to explain yourself and do your own thing. So to watch him say, hey, I'm not gonna kiss the ring. I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna speak to a different audience. I thought it was brilliant how it came off, because I'm really curious to see how that paper is going to be impacted. Another thing about it was that you have to read something. And that was something else too, that we talk about black people developing. You talk about college students who have to go back and dissect that. High school students who have to read that document and find the holes in it, find the problems in it, but they have to read. How many people like that have challenged our generations to have to go do an academic research, engage in political conversation, and read and apply it to your regular life and take yourself in and out the conversation while you're reading? I thought it was a brilliant strategy. When I was looking, I said, man, here's Ice Cube that once again went into the market space and created a blue ocean. I said blue ocean is when you go into the market space and you create and you don't have any competition and you maintain your competitive edge because there's no one else in the market providing that product. Similar to like what Apple did when they came out with their phones. So here is again, Cube walks into a market space and he introduces a product that makes everybody flip out and go crazy with all areas, and they're trying to figure out how and what position to take on this. I thought it was like, I said, man, that's pretty. For somebody growing up in LA and the hood and the community to say, okay, now I got the whole world talking about why investing in Black, why supporting Black, why reparations in this format is important. I just thought it was a brilliant thing. So I'm sitting back watching it and more intrigued to see how far is this going to go, and whether he didn't do it the right way. I don't think Cuba has ever done anything the right way. And I think that's one of the things that has made him what he is. He broke away from NWA and did his own thing. That was all part of the movie, all part of his success. He has never been a person that has followed, that he marched to the beat of his own drum. And I think when you watch that about him, you're like, okay. And he speaks to a generation of people. He speaks to a person out there who are always rubbing against the edge to say, hey, I'm not going to be the status quo. I'm going to say what I think. It's a Black person out there that we don't like to deal with sometimes, because they out there. They got their own opinions. They got their own values. They do their own thing, and you can't do nothing about it. Yeah. And they make their own success, and they make their own money. And that's something. He's not depending on leaning on nobody. You didn't see him ask for a handout or nothing. He just is one of those things that when he did it, I'm just sitting back like, okay. Now there's questions about, oh man, was this the perfect timing? What should he have done? All that stuff.
I will say this. I think we all agreed that we give him kudos for trying, right? I think there's a lot of opportunities, because there's been bills and been plans for the African American agenda all the time. I think the public is not aware of that. And that's why I think where you're adding, Corey, like you said, it's exciting, but that's ongoing government processes. And Leah, I know you're a political scientist. People have to be aware that is all what someone's always presenting some type of agenda. Ice Cube's not the first. He's just the first to do it publicly, and we get known. But the thing is, once we get more engaged as a community, as a culture, and I think the lady said it best, be engaged, know your political candidates. You would have seen or known there's been agendas for the African American community a lot of times. So there's a level of engagement of the ignorance of, hey, this bill is one bill, it's gonna fit all.
Myron, Myron, part of that strategy, like, right, those academic, the academy has been producing research, and there are political groups who have been doing that for years, and they're constantly doing it. But in terms of the general public engaging in that, some of that stuff we read in college, some of the stuff we talked about in our African American studies classes, in our circles, in our book clubs, in our different groups, in our fraternities that we talked about, sororities, we talked about this kind of stuff. But the everyday person talking about an academic concept in that capacity is something that has been engaged, has been a part of the pillar, to where a document that can impact multiple generations at one time, where everybody, young and old, middle, got to be like, let me just take a look at what this dude was really trying to say. I think that right there is different. I think it's different than knowing that if I go find the Black agenda that's been pushed out by the Urban League strategy and by the more progressive strategy, when you read those agendas, those intellectuals, you read their agendas, it's speaking to a certain group, and those groups, they engage. That's why I guess I just want to chime in on that and say, I see that, but I was like, man, it was like, who wrote an academic concept like that was able to, that could be, and then in the time of social isolation right now, be able to do that. I was like, man, that's flat out, because right now, the Black agenda right now is not even out there. We don't even, like, it used to be the forums, they used to have the events, they used to have an event every year, and they'd be speaking, just saying the sound bites, but you never got the document. You never got the marching orders from the real marching orders on the local front. You didn't get them. So it's something to watch now. Like, okay, here's something that came out right before the election that makes you have to, I gotta indulge to make it. If I could decide, yeah, you was off, you were wrong. But it's the fact that it was produced and put out there. It's brilliant. I just say it's brilliant because I've seen the Black agenda. I'm a supporter of Cornel West stuff, all that, but you read it, you like, who else gets what can you walk down the street and have a conversation with the local guy at the gas about this Black agenda? It's like,
But I wanted to say something really quick about what you said about the different sides and actually talking about the having a party for Black people, and you bring in a Reverend Barber, who I think has actually been the person who took off the call where
People's campaign.
with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King left off. I mean, when I talk to third graders about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, especially here in Arizona, the first thing I said, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was murdered. And the kids just freeze, because that's not what they really begin to understand, because we've just commercialized MLK here in Arizona, now where we even have slogans and nicknames where the kids don't really even know the full name of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. But when you take like a Ice Cube and actually bring Reverend Barber together, we pick up, because right now what Reverend Barber is actually showing and demonstrating, and you still are not hearing from either party, that this poor people's campaign and the economics is the part that neither party is really picking up. So I think when you talk about this whole party, it's like we have this movement. So it's about engrafting the people who are and the organizations that's already together that's being ignored because of fear of the big two to actually even approach what it's really about, which is the green. So that's really the next iteration and the type of partnerships that I would like to see with what Ice Cube is doing, where he gets some seasoned people who are actually picking up the mantle and talking about these things, because we know part of the loss and why we have the occupant of the White House is because people who are impoverished, and not just Black people, but those other folks who are impoverished says, well, maybe this one is going to do something about our poverty because of and they thought that was going to be the thing, because nobody was speaking to poverty. Everybody was speaking to middle class and above and the work, all of that. But the impoverished people, no one was speaking to those issues. And so hence we have this disaster. But that's the next thing I would like to say. And I always make sure that I enter his name in the conversation, because so often I'm like, okay, we're excited that we're in the running and we're on the table, but this poverty is not going away. And economics is really the main, I guess, where the bridge was broken. And when people say, what do we do now? And where would Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King want us to be picking up? It's about the green, it's the money. And so when I see the plan talks about this and talk about education and talk about schools and all that, he's just beginning to understand that how school funding is, it's intentional, how all of these other things happen is intentional. And when you look at land ownership here in America, that is ridiculous when you look at land ownership. So, so when you become aware, sometimes you're a person who forget this. What I used to do in life is just bust out in a song. He's like, okay, all right. Scrap that. I'm actually, do the next evolve thing. My son is busting out in songs and doing movies. So let me do what I think is the next evolution. He just needs other people to come along who's actually doing the things where their voice is not amplified and when it's just being ignored.
Well, guys, I know we've been looking over time. Go ahead, Leah. My apologies.
I was just one last thing in closing, and that is that as we move forward and think about where do we go from here? What do we do from here? And if we initially, when someone has an idea or someone has a plan, I don't know many people who just sit around making plans and laying it all out. I'd love to see that, so we can have a plethora of them and use them all side by side and take the good from the bad. But if our initial reaction is to be so hard and critical, and a lot of times that's what happens. We're so critical and hard on one another, and we have to stop that. But if we start off by being knee-jerk reaction of being dismissive, then we may really knock out the beginnings of a true treasure. We have no idea, especially if you don't know all the details of what something is entailing. So it's important to look at everything. Is it all good in whatever plan may be? Probably not. But is there some good? Could be. So let's not just knock things out of the water. And by the way, we do have an Arizona African American agenda as well that was worked on throughout this entire summer for 2020. Happy to share it anytime.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. I know we ran a little bit over. You know, Black folks, we like to talk a little bit when we get those hot topics. But, you know, when it comes to greens and cornbread, who got the best cornbread? Who got the best greens? Right? We all.
You threw out Ice Cube.
Yeah, I threw it out. Right? I, you know, boom. You see what happens, right? But I want to thank you guys for being on. If you guys stay on for this little bit, hey, Brian, always a pleasure being my co-host. Corey, thanks for coming on, which is one of our new co-hosts as well, Apolitical. And guys, check us out. Go to apolitical06.com. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Team Apolitical as well. And guys, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next show.